Welcome back to another episode of Single and Not Settling. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. He is a dating and relationship coach and founder of Make Him Yours, a coaching program that has helped thousands of women find love. A former vet and male stripper, Mark is now Australia's most sought after dating and relationship coach for women. His passion for bringing men and women back together allowed him to create a step-by-step process and an unparalleled guarantee of love for every client he works with. Mark has been featured on Ticker TV, news.com.au, Style Magazine, Thought Catalogue, Elite Daily, The Good Men Project, the list goes on. His online video content attracting more than 70 million views. Whether it's confidence, clarity, or a genuine connected soulmate, Mark's clients look to him as a progressive, honest, and practical coach who can lead them through the mists of uncertainty and doubt that modern dating can be. And I'm very lucky to have him on the show, that his team has reached out and wanted to collaborate on an episode. So welcome, Mark, to Single and Not Settling.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And look, I just wanted to say to yourself and the listeners that I'd been wanting a male guest to come onto the show to bring that bit of male perspective and that masculine energy. So I'm really glad that you've reached out and you're here and we're having this conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's important to have these conversations, between men and women to bring us all back together.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's just, that vicious circle that keeps going around, the pointing of fingers. And I love that you're here and that we're having this conversation. So let's just dive right into it because, we want to get all the questions answered. And I had some, all my audience and my followers kind of write through some questions. So what I really want to know is online dating. So I'm kind of, tipping my toe back into Hinge at the moment. And I love that, you speak into this a lot and you do a lot of work around online dating and dating apps. So we have ghosting, love bombing, lack of effort. It's making online dating exhausting. So what's happening? And how can we have a better dating experience online? Like, what's the secret you can share with us?
Yeah, this is a problem I recently solved, and it was a huge project for me. I went online as a woman, because clients were always saying to me, Mark, it's hard. You don't really know what it's like for me as a woman. So I went online as a woman, different ages, different kid statuses, different demographics. And for about 350 consecutive days, I was on dating apps as a woman because I said, I know that there are good people on these apps and I know that men and women want to meet each other. Why is it all failing? Where is it going wrong? The apps have some major brain issues that really hit they're almost like, have you ever been on you go to Vegas, you ever used a poker machine?
Yes. Yep.
First time you use a poker machine, it's kind of fun. You go, oh, it's exciting. Okay. You pull the lever, it's fun. Get a hit of dopamine. The 100th time, you are depressed. Usually you've lost money and usually you feel bad about yourself for the last 100 spins. Unfortunately, dating apps have that same effect on our brain. They are designed to be a dopamine stimulation, like a poker machine that feels really good the first time, but then makes us depressed the longer we're on them. So I said, there's a system here that has to be marketed because the apps are a business and they're built one way, but there is a good part of this. There's a bringing together of lots of men and lots of women who want to meet each other, including some good people in there. So long story short, I set up a system for my clients to prevent this. And what we basically do is we design their bio and their questions, their entire profile, in a way that very specifically filters what they want. We also then have a structure to the conversation so that women don't have to create chats every time. They don't have to, you don't even have to be in a good mood. You can just copy paste. Most of it's done in advance. And it moves men very quickly from, hey, we matched, to, hey, he's giving you a call at the time you suggested. We still want the man taking the lead. We still want you to be able to feel seen and chased and cherished by the good men. But we want to make sure they're good men. And we don't want you to be the one driving the conversation, asking all the questions, feeling like he's not putting in effort. And unfortunately, that is the majority of people's experience online. When you put that many people together, there's just too many people, there's too much going on, and everyone gets lazy. It's a real cluster F-U-C-K, if you know what I'm saying. But with the right filtering system, understanding that we can bring in compatible people using that, and then the right questions to, again, rule out anyone, and then the guys taking the lead, we can use online for what it's good for, which is essentially meeting, and not have the ghosting, the hey sexies, the low effort, the textathons, the fizzles, the bad questions, the incompatible guys, even the ones that you end up on a date, they're older or younger or they're scammers. We haven't had any of that in months for my clients because they're just following a very specific structure. We do usually 15, 20 minutes a day, and then they're off on dates. And that's really the whole point, isn't it? It's let's get off on dates. If you're going to use online, have a clear structured system, kind of like, I suppose, filtering water. You know, you want to filter out the wrong parts of it so that you can drink it. You wouldn't just drink any water. Hopefully you have some kind of filter on your water. It's the same thing with your dating life. Have filters that are set up, that are tested, that you know will work, so that at the end you can just enjoy drinking the water and not have to have any of the crappy stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And it's a great analogy of the poker machines as well, how to explain online dating and that dopamine hit, because I totally agree that it is that dopamine hit that, you know, a lot of people are looking for at the beginning. And then it does get exhausting and you're swipe really quickly and you're swiping on potential matches.
It's so bad for your brain. It is really bad for your brain.
Yeah. And also like self-esteem, your self-worth, your confidence, it will go down, and that will have an impact not just in dating, but in any other aspect of your life too.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of amazing women that come to me, and then unfortunately, you know, I look at their profiles and they're kind of average. Their texts make them sound, to be honest, pretty boring. And I look at them objectively and I'm like, yeah, no wonder no one's putting effort into you. When you're being compared to 1,000 other women, you look average. You seem average, and average is not going to cut it in this instance. The energy is going to go towards the people that, if I'm a man and I'm messaging, especially a man who has options, and I'm messaging 10 women, who are the two that I'm going to ask questions and follow through with? They are the two that I go, oh, I like your energy. Oh, you seem like you'd be cool to hang out with. Yeah, I'd do a phone call. Yeah, I want more of your energy in my life. So absolutely, I'm going to follow through. And the cool part is it's a positive cycle, because when a man invests, he becomes invested. So if we get him investing at the start by answering a couple of questions, the follow-through rate is really high. We want at least 75% of the men who you give your number to, for my clients, we want those guys to be calling them at the time the client has said and essentially following through. So the follow-through rate is really good if you get that initial investment from the guy. It's just kind of like getting that momentum and making sure the right guys are giving you that momentum. And that's essentially how the system works. We simultaneously filter out the people we don't want and get the compatible people to put in effort, which leads to follow through.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds really interesting. So it sounds like you've got a script, so scripted text messages that women, once they've matched with, they send to the guy, and that encourages them to reply, and also the filtering. So for me, for instance, I'm probably going to create a Hinge profile over the next couple of weeks or so.
Nice.
I know, right? I'm loving this conversation. I'm talking to you, so it's actually really in alignment, so I can get the info from you. So, like, obviously those text messages are going to be prompting the men to respond and then take the lead at some point.
Correct.
What is one thing or a few things that women often misunderstand about men in dating? So the normal text messages. So, you know, the advice usually is, you know, comment something on the picture. Where are they traveling to? You know, just be interactive.
Don't do any of that.
No. Yeah. Yep. Go for it. Share. What do I need to know?
So questions are really important. We want a man asking you questions, because the question asker is putting energy towards the question receiver, which means the question receiver is in a position of power. The question asker wants something from the question receiver. The first question might be, how's your day? Another question might be, can I take you on a date? The ultimate question is, can I marry you? But the point is, a man should be chasing a woman, and you see that through questions. So questions are generally good behavior. Where it falls apart a bit online is you will log on as a woman, and often if you have a lot of matches, you'll get a lot of questions. A bunch of people say, how are you? How's your day? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And then women get exhausted from answering too many questions, and the quality of their answers starts to go down. The question answers start to sound average. And as soon as you start sounding, as soon as your energy, I should say, as soon as your energy starts sounding average, you're going to get fizzles. You're not going to get the follow through. You're not going to basically have success, unfortunately. So my original system really focused on the way you answer a question. and showing up using feelings words, using the right emojis and tonalities so that when a man gives you a question, which is good behavior, we want him asking you questions, he gets a reward that is quite exceptional. As in your answer makes him go, wow, she saw a blue bird and she's so excited about it. And she just sounds like the tree outside the back of her house is really pretty. Man, she's so excited about a tree. That's cool. So initially, this was how I taught a lot of my clients is if a guy asks you a question, your energy and self-disclosure is his reward. Once he's asked you a couple, he's going to ask you a third question, and then you take him offline. That was brilliant. The only downside was it still requires the client to answer those questions from the guy and be in a decent energy herself. And going online isn't like going out where you kind of dress up, you mentally prepare, you say, I'm going to talk to some people. All right, even if I'm not in the mood, I'll be good for half an hour. Going online, you tend to be in sweatpants, you put your feet up, you've had a long day. Often it's hard to bring that energy to your question answers that you would online, that you would offline, I'm sorry. So I want to create a system where women didn't really have to have that energy or be in that energy to have success. So what I switched it to was we have the guys qualify themselves from the bio. So on Hinge, for example, Hinge doesn't give us many characters. One of the prompts will be your question. And essentially the question will be a multiple choice answer. Question A, B, C, or D. The question will be very specifically chosen around a compatibility or trait you are filtering for. Now, here's the key. Two of your answers, let's say A and D, should be correct answers. Two of your answers, B and C, will be incorrect answers. The key is we want B and C to still sound attractive to the wrong people. Because you can't put two answers that are obviously, oh, that she doesn't want me to choose those. We want four answers that all could sound correct to the right or versus wrong people. So we get that question, and then the guys that answer the question correctly get to chat with you. What we then do is we take the lead a little bit here in a sense that we ask the man permission. Hey, would it be okay if I ask you a question or two to see if our values match? We're kind of then a little bit more proactive in the chat. And 99 times out of 100, the guy says, sure, great, you can ask me a question. We now have a little bit of a lead in the conversation. I don't love taking the lead in this case, but the good news here is it allows the men to qualify themselves to us. So let's say we wanted to ask a qualifying question about health. We could say, tell me a little bit about your values and habits around health beyond what you've written in your bio. What we want is the guy to give a long answer. Because again, if the guy is becoming invested by typing, let's say he spends 5 minutes typing an answer, he's more likely to follow through than a guy who spent 30 seconds typing almost nothing. So we basically have two questions built around your specific compatibilities, what you're searching for online. And then we essentially say to the guy, hey, I'm really enjoying this chat. I'd certainly feel, you can ask me a question if you want. That said, I'd certainly feel open if you were to, if I was to give you my number, I'd feel open. Hang on, how do we word it? I would certainly be open to giving you my number and letting you know when I'm free. And the guy will say, sure, that's great. And we say, here's my number. I'm free this time or this time. Text me your name first so I know, whether know to pick up. And so a lot of the time, we're not getting into these distractive tangents in the conversation. We're kind of just flowing them through. And then once we're on a phone date, you can talk about whatever, and you can let your personality shine, and you can actually have fun in the dating process. The texting is just a means to an end here. We want you on dates with good quality men, as in phone dates, video dates, real life dates. So a lot of the time, my clients, the questions are important, and that's when you can be in your like feminine energy shine. You're the diamond, and the man's attention is coming towards you. But we do use questions a little bit as qualifying. And then once you're on the phone, or let's say he wants to ask you one more question, let yourself shine. And that guy is going to want to follow through with you the most, more so than the other women he's chatting to.
God, I absolutely love that, because it's really, so a lot of women can think of this initially. And the feedback that I've heard is that, women don't want to keep asking questions of men. But how
Yes.
your prep process works is that it's like you've got this big funnel. So you've got, say, 20 matches in this funnel at the top, and they're filtering down to get right to the bottom. But you're actually holding your posture, taking the lead, and getting them to the next step. It is like kind of like a sales process, because it's like the next step is the answers, then it's like a phone call, and then it's like a date. So you're wanting to get that next bit.
Exactly. And look, we sometimes when we use a copy paste script, we personalize it a little bit. Like, let's say the guy says, oh, I freaking, love rock climbing and this is my hobby and blah, blah, blah. We might add one extra sentence about we've got our whole script and then we add, and rock climbing is so cool too. So we make sure it doesn't sound robotic. It shouldn't feel like an interview. It's designed to feel personal and inviting. We still want your energy to be inviting. Okay. This is kind of like he's applying for a job. You don't show up as the job interviewer and kind of grill the person to the point they don't want the job anymore. Okay. We still want the role to feel very inviting for him. He's still, oh, I want to move things forward. So he's qualifying himself through his answers. And again, the more he writes, the more he answers, the more invested he then becomes in you. And then after that, when you drop your number, he's much more likely to follow through than if the conversation's been meh.
Yeah, that's so clever. Like, it's very clever. And I think that is the thing that women misunderstand about men, is that they do want that reward. They want that little bit of validation. But then also it's like they'll kind of change. So the man can come into his masculine as well.
Yeah, I would, if I was to summarize, I really like your answer there. I would say what women most understand about men is our greatest reward is your feelings.
Yep.
So when you say something as simple as, heck yeah, I'm excited to chat to you, feeling excited to chat to you, or I appreciate you asking, or let's say he does a really long response. Thanks so much for going into detail. That makes me feel happy to hear you talk about that. When he knows that you are responsive to him, affected by him in terms of positive feelings, that's the reward. That's the, oh, I'm useful as a man. I made her feel good.
Yeah.
Great. I like a woman that I can make feel good. That makes me feel validated, like I'm useful as a man. So you don't want to be stone cold and stoic, because then the man's like, well, what's the point of me? I can't affect her. If he does something and he behaves well, he invests in you, he calls you, and you go, thank you so much for calling me tonight. You called right when you said you would. I freaking love that. That just gave me a very happy feeling tonight. Already, he's like, oh yeah, I did the win. I want more of this. Men want your feelings, and we want to make a difference to them in a good way.
Yeah. And is that emotionally available men? Because we meet a lot of unavailable men online, and I guess with your process, it does filter that as well. So if, again, top of funnel, you've got 20 matches, and you can tell by the middle of that funnel if they're available or they're not.
Look, it depends on the question you use. I would say almost all men in their own way want to affect a woman's feelings. I know a lot of men who are at various stages of their emotional unavailable journey, going from one end of the spectrum to the other. And all of them, whether they're in a marriage, whether they're single, whether they're divorced, all of them have a desire to please women. I haven't worked with a few sort of psychopathic men or sociopathic men who don't care about women's feelings at all. So I think men wanting to affect a woman's feelings in a good way is pretty universal. There are definitely emotionally unavailable men who still care a lot about pleasing a woman and her feelings. You know, I used to be a lot that way myself. In fact, is I can show up to dating and kind of be available and be really considerate. But when my trauma comes up, when shit gets real in a relationship, suddenly that's when I start to freeze up and get restricted and start to go, oh, I want to bury my emotions now instead of being in them. So it wouldn't be so much, I would say most men want to have that positive effect on a woman. That alone wouldn't filter emotional availability. But you could certainly design a question that filters emotional availability or does a lot of the work. So for example, yeah, you could design something around masculinity and about his approach to emotions. Again, you need to make sure the answers are appealing to the wrong people. So you could something like, a man who shows sadness is a pussy or something. That automatically is going to filter in a subset of men who think that to be true. I think that's pretty much the summary of that. Is we would use the question for that. Men just want to affect your feelings in a good way. It's what we care about the most, making you happy.
Yeah. And that's such a really refreshing thing to hear as well. And I think, online dating has, tarnished a lot of women's perceptions of men. And it's, those beliefs that we carry that, dating apps are bad, they just attract, emotionally unavailable men.
It should come with a user agreement, sorry, a license where you have to pass a 4-hour exam to get an account.
Yeah.
Because it's dangerous. It's what it does to your brain.
Yeah.
People don't understand, and men are suffering as well. Women suffer. They come to me every day. They're like, I hate dating apps. They don't work. And men say the same thing. It's like we have all these people no one teaches enough of, obviously we do, but like in general, there is no general course to not get these shitty results, to kind of not get these sucky results. And so everyone's struggling on them. And it makes the more we struggle, the more our energy goes down. And the more our energy goes down, the more we struggle. So it's this shitty cycle which reproduces
Mm,
the same results. And that's why it's so important to have a clear system and a plan and to just get on the apps and get off. They're
yep.
they're they're only a means to an end, nothing more. If a
Mhm.
guy is online, as in if a guy is live responding when we're using the system, we'll be out of there on a date, as in we'll have the date booked within 15, 20 minutes.
Mhm.
As in we respond, question one, he answers, question two, he answers, transition one, he then confirms, and then we give him the number and the time is booked. So this should be quick. It shouldn't
Yep.
be, it's a way to organize a date. It's not a way to really get to know in depth beyond what the compatibility you're testing for.
Yeah. And how long do you think we should, so from the beginning to the end, when we're, going back and forth on the dating app, having that
Yeah.
conversation and setting up the phone call or the date, how long do
Yeah.
you think that window should be?
As in how many texts or how long in days?
Or how long in days?
Oh, as few as possible, two or
Yeah.
three, four maybe. Yeah.
Mm,
And no more than really 6 to 8 texts.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. Then also, like, if you say that, then the process and the messages that you have will get that result in those few days as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
process is 6 texts, but occasionally there's one or two more. The guy says, well, can I ask you a question first? We go, all right, I'll give you one question. You get one, and then we're in a textathon. So you don't get any more than one. And then he asks one question, and then he calls you. So there's
Yeah.
little things that can happen, but in general, it's a 6 text process.
Yeah, I love that response because it creates a little bit of like wittiness, a bit of, cheekiness to it. And that kind of flirtatious kind of flirting starts to begin. I like
Yeah.
that. And then it's like, yep, let's now jump on a call or meet for a coffee or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like to think, how would you show up if you were in your most flirty, relaxed energy? You could imagine
Mm,
yourself with a boyfriend you really like, or maybe with your best girlfriend. How
yeah.
do you show up? Oh, I'm relaxed, I'm playful, I'm having so much fun, everything is funny, and I'm just like so confident. That's how your text should sound. People
Mm,
think that I should text how I would meet a stranger. No, that's fucking boring and polite. Text as if you're at your highest vibration of self, which is usually how you are around either your best friend or a boyfriend you really like, or a husband you maybe really, when you did like him, assuming you're single
yeah.
now.
You hope
So
so.
we script it to make you sound like you are at your best, which is confident, flirty, inviting, grateful, attractive, energetic waves that men go, yeah, I would call her. She sounds like she'd be cool to chat to. We
Mm,
don't want the boring, oh, it's 8 p.m. I'm in, sweatpants. I can't be effed typing. So I'll just say good. That energy, there's no point. Just don't even log on if you're going to be in that energy.
yeah.
That's why
It's
I
like,
created the scripts for my clients to make them available all the time.
yeah, I love that. So, do you work with men as well? Because you mentioned earlier that men are struggling too. And we
Yeah.
don't hear a lot about that. We hear a lot about women are struggling, women want the help. There's more dating coaches I can see out in the field for women. So, are men actually doing the work? So, we speak about the emotionally unavailable men. Are they doing the work? Like, I want to know from like a women's perspective, because I've done so much personal development work on myself, looked at my
Yeah.
traumas, my inner child, all of that stuff. And a lot of women that I connect with are doing the same as well. Why
Yeah.
is it, do you think, that more of these programs are targeted to the women audience and not so much men?
Yeah, I have a few points on that. I can sort of, my own experience is a little bit unique and doesn't necessarily reflect the greater market. When I initially started coaching, I was working exclusively with men, but I was very young at the time, or I should say, and I was very young at the time, 21, 22. And I was starting to find a lot of the men that I was working with just kind of wanted to get laid, basically, which wasn't really my jam. It's fine. They're 21-year-old men. So I started offering my programs to a couple of women and just found that I really enjoyed the connection aspect that women wanted, that it was going a bit deeper. The women were a bit more self-reflective. It was a bit less gamey at the time working with younger people. So I moved towards a women's market. And I think there is something to be said, therefore, we see in psychology that I believe it's 2/3 approximately of women who basically go to therapy. Sorry, 2/3 of people who go to therapy are women. So naturally, there is a bigger self-improvement market there for women. And there's an evolutionary basis to this. Women are collaborative problem solvers. Women are used to talking about problems in groups. There's an evolutionary bias to this,
Yeah.
which is, hey, let's get women together and collaborate to solve a problem. Men, evolutionarily speaking, there was more of a risk in showing weakness. So men tend to use a problem-solving solution that is more inward, that is more, I don't want to seem unconfident to the tribe. So I'm going to go away, stay quiet and figure this out. And then when I do, I'm going to come back with this brilliant answer. So you're
Yeah.
more likely to see men isolate and try to fix a problem themselves. But this is an issue now. We live in such a connected society, and women being more prone to ask for help. We saw, even from a business perspective, that there was more of a market for that from women, especially in the early 2000s, kind of moving into the 2010s. I think the good news is now I'm seeing a lot more stuff crop up for men, a lot more. And it comes up a lot in my feed these days. I imagine for the ladies listening, it probably doesn't crop up in your feed because, well, businesses would be silly, promoting that to you. But I am seeing a lot more of this. And I'm in a great men's group. We've all invested a significant portion of money to be there. And we're all working on our mother wounds, our father wounds, our various different things every week, and our relationships. Even with my wife, there's still stuff that comes up. I thought I was healed. I thought, I'm pretty good. I did the thing. I got married. I got someone who really matches me. And then you realize, wait, as we get closer, oh my God, that thing from my mum, or that emotion I still pushed down from when I was a kid, it's still affecting my relationship with my wife and causing arguments and disagreements there. So I think there's two things that I'd say that are really heartening. The first is I see a lot more men doing this work, especially in my circles. And it takes men doing it to make it okay for other men, as in, oh, he's doing it. I don't feel so alone anymore. I don't feel like I'm the only guy struggling with this, because men are very isolated, and we tend to isolate ourselves when we get into trouble as well. So the more men can be connected to other men, the less this stuff gets isolated and buried, and the more it becomes, hey, I can do relational work, and doesn't like make me a pussy. It doesn't make me a woman. It actually, like, I can be a better man and a more masculine man by doing relational work. So I think we're seeing some positive, a lot of positive kind of outcomes with that. And a woman might still say, well, great, that's great, but there's still twice as many women doing it as there are men. So what, I'm just never going to find someone. And I would say, really don't think like that, because that would be like living in a city where there's twice as many, women as there are men, and saying, well, I'm never going to find a boyfriend. It's not true. We don't line them up every weekend, okay, and half the women miss out. All right, there's only, even if there's not as many people on the male side working on themselves, if you really are showing up, and if you're really doing a wonderful job of addressing your wounds and moving towards interdependence and recognizing your own needs and essentially opening your heart, because connection with others starts with connecting with yourself. If you're really becoming deeply connected with yourself, then the universe is absolutely going to mirror that. There are still millions and millions of men doing this work. Maybe it's not the total number, but believe me, you don't have all the hours in the world times 100. You wouldn't have enough time to meet all the men who are doing the work, even if there's a small percentage. So numbers wise, there's enough out there that, dude, there's not 4 men. Okay. There's many, many thousands, hundreds of thousands that are doing it.
Yeah.
The numbers match up. You'll be okay.
Yeah, I guess sometimes as women feel that there are only 4 men out there, that, it's like there's more of eligible men on our level who have done that work, who have leveled up. But I love what you mentioned at the start of that answer. It was men tend to go inward, whereas women, we will get our group chat together, we'll go out, for a picnic or a cocktail or something. And that's how, is part of our therapy too. And I think that's a thing that women do forget, is that men do go inward. They have that time to go inward. And that, I think this leads to my next question. So men going inward, they're still probably going to be on the dating apps. It's just a matter of filtering them, and your process, obviously you have really good results on it. But also I think women having, high value standards is really important when you are filtering online. So men who are going inward, doing the work, they still want some company, which there's no judgment. That's totally fine. It's just not in alignment to what the woman is probably looking for. So
Sure. Yeah.
with the standards and expectations, and I also put this in my ebook as well, which is called The Empowered Single Woman, and how it relates, to dating as a high value woman. Like, what would you say, about that topic, about standards versus expectations. And when we are filtering on an app or on that phone call or on that first date, what's the standard versus that expectation there?
Two pieces here. The first is I always differentiate the terms standard and expectations in general. Expectations tend to come with a sense of entitlement, as in, if you don't meet my expectation, well, you're not, you're below expectation versus, oh yeah, you met expectations. Standards can be exactly the same thing as an expectation, but the mindset is, okay, I'm going to be kind of grateful for it. This is a standard for me. Hey, if you don't have it, no worries. This is just my standard. So we tend to really appreciate it when it shows up, whereas expectations we tend to expect, and thus we don't have the same level of gratitude when we label something an expectation compared to if we label it a standard. So in terms of terminology, I know it's semantics, but semantics in the English language matter. So I would always use the word standards over expectations, because expectations tend to, they promote entitlement, which is pretty unhelpful. In terms of where to put your standards, and obviously I get clients who sometimes ask for too little, and then I get a few clients who also ask for too much. There's a few general guidelines that I use for women, and this would apply to men as well. The first is, do you possess that trait yourself? And that's an important one, because it would be hypocritical to filter for a trait that you don't have. Now, of course, a partner's not going to be the same and their traits aren't going to exactly match. But if you're saying, for example, hey, I want a man who's, really financially aware or really fit, and you are not one of those things, that's hypocritical. You need to work on yourself before you ask for that as a standard. The second piece is there's also masculine feminine traits, which tend to be opposite. So if a man says, I want a really feminine woman, or if a woman says, I want a really masculine man, you need to make sure you are essentially the equivalent opposite of that. So, I want a man who's really extremely masculine. Are you embodying whatever is the opposite of that, the extremely feminine traits? So sometimes it's a like attracts like thing. And in the attractive-based traits, it's often an opposite attracts thing. So the first is you need to be embodying the same or the equivalent trait yourself. That's a really big one. The second one is I like clients to sit down with all of their standards and to write the shitty part of them. Because often when we look at a trait, we think, oh, I just want that thing because it's good. And we forget that having a good trait in someone means accepting an equivalent bad trait about them. In other words, let's say I want someone who's really responsible with money. Okay. Are you also okay accepting someone who plays it safe, who is maybe a little boring or a little conservative with the way they spend, who is maybe more reserved or doesn't have quite the same sort of leadership maybe experience as someone who's taken more risks with money throughout his life? Or let's say you want someone who's really emotionally aware. Okay, I want someone who's deeply emotionally aware. Are you going to be okay with a man who's maybe more sensitive? And a lot of women honestly find that unattractive at times. Emotionally aware men tend to be a little slower and they tend to be a little more sensitive, perhaps, or they just speak to their emotions in such a way that it might make you uncomfortable at times.
Yeah.
So every trait you ask for, just pick a few of them and think, what is the shitty part of that? If I attract someone with that, what do I also attract? And that creates balance in your standards. So, Mark, I really want this. And as a result, I'm also willing to live or accept this. And then we're not just looking at the good, we're looking at the shitty thing it comes with. And I guess the final thing I would say, and this is particular to online is such, the way the apps are built, all our brain wants to do is get through the matches. It's like an email list. I just swipe, I just want them gone. Our brain hates the complexity. It just wants the dopamine and then everything to be gone. And unfortunately, what that does is it means we start filtering using really superficial means, especially when you compare to what your relationship vision is. Mark, my relationship vision is I want a man who's present, who's attentive, who's taken the lead in his life, who's able to slow down and have conversations and making me laugh at times. And we have all these in-depth, beautiful traits we're filtering for in our vision. And then we jump online and we get so overwhelmed. Our brains are like, is he 6 foot tall and 6 feet? I don't know. Yes, yes, yes. No, 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 no. Yes, yes, no, 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 no. So the traits that we often swipe with are superficial and fleeting compared to the large batch of traits that actually make up our vision. So the process that I use, that clients use, is designed to really help with that, which is let's do our best to take a holistic view of the guy. Okay, maybe he is an A on finances, I don't know, a B on looks, and are questionable on emotional intelligence. So you decide, all right, I'll put him through and at least have a chat to him and get an intuition.
Mhm.
Or maybe he's the reverse of that and you make a similar decision, or maybe not. We want a system that doesn't force us to try to use our brain to swipe through 100 guys in 10 minutes, because our brain is just going to go, do I think he's the hottest guy on here? Nope, next. Our brain doesn't have that capacity. So being aware when you're swiping versus all the traits in your vision, you want to take a more rounded view of the guy. And would I talk to this guy at a party? You know, would I give him at least 5-10 minutes of my time and just be open and curious? Nope, not in a million years. I could never even go there. Okay, swipe no. You know what? If I was at a party, he's attractive enough that I'd at least have a chat with him. All right, give that person a chance and see what he has to say about the rest of those traits and what he has to show about the rest of those traits. So
Yep.
those are the big three. Is it, do I possess that trait? What are the shitty opposite of the traits? And is my filtering covering the in-depth traits, or is it superficially focused?
Yeah, such a great answer. Thank you so much for that. And I love how
You're
you threw the
welcome.
energetics into it as well. And like does attract like. So I love that you put that in there too, because I'm quite spiritual and I speak about this a lot. Um,
Yeah.
and it is like if you want someone who goes to the gym and looks fit and is athletic, and you're sitting at home, eating the chocolate, you're not in having proper morning routine where you're going to the gym or doing some kind of workout, how can you
Yeah.
attract
Is he gonna
that?
is he gonna attract you? Probably not. That's not an energetic match.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So with the qualities of a high value man. So when women are filtering this process that you share with them, what qualities are they looking for to attract that um, high value man?
Yeah, I mean, the cool part is you kind of get to decide this for yourself because no one is everything, especially all the time. So you get to say, well, what is high value to me? The traits I talk about a lot with clients are emotional consistency.
Hmm.
That's a big one. And
Yep.
I guess that goes with lack of impulsiveness, because impulsiveness is a strong sign of trauma. Because when we're impulsive, as in following an impulse, we are following something from our body. There's something has come up within our body telling us to do X when we know we should be doing Y. So impulsiveness and signs of a lack of emotional consistency is a really big red flag versus emotional consistency. And he does what he says what he does. That's a really great green flag I encourage clients to look for. Learning about his relationship with anger is a big one.
Mm. Yep.
Often men are taught by their fathers that, and additionally by their mothers even, that anger is either a big scary emotion that hurts women, that is always bad and should never be used. So they repress it and push it down, or the opposite, where they become overbearing with their anger and they use anger to cover for when they're sad. They use anger to cover for when they're vulnerable. They use anger to cover when they're insecure. And depending on the parents, sometimes we copy our parents or sometimes we do the exact opposite of our parents. But looking at what is his relationship with anger and how does that relate to his relationship to sadness and vulnerability? Can he use anger in a healthy way? Because a man should have anger. It's one of the most highly energized emotions that not only sets boundaries, but allows a man to be a protector and a provider. So a man needs good access to his anger, but the wrong kind of access or unhealthy access can be extremely problematic. Anger can be a extremely damaging emotion used incorrectly, or if it's repressed and then explodes out, if it's unhealthily directed at people, it can be extremely toxic. So that's a great one to look for.
Mm.
What's another one I use? Doing the work. This is a big one that a lot of clients sort of say to me, which you alluded to earlier. Is he introspective or retrospective of himself? Is he able to take feedback? John Gottman talks a lot about, can a man kind of receive from his woman, receive feedback? Is he able to, admit a little bit of fault or a lot of fault even? Is he able to apologize? Is he able to sort of go to a therapist or a coach, or someone where he can get a role model, whether it's a man or a woman, to give him feedback and take that on? It's usually a sign of solid self-worth if he can admit his actions were wrong and just own that and work on fixing them, as opposed to denying his actions were wrong or clearly holding a lot of shame around it. So a lot of the stuff that I talk to that's high value is not the typical 6 figures, this or that. That stuff's all fine, but most women don't miss that stuff. The stuff that I find gets missed is the emotional trauma-based deal breakers. And so looking underneath the surface for his relationship with certain emotions, how consistently he shows up, impulsiveness, is he able to be introspective, and can he fix and do conflict with you? What are his conflict skills like? Stuff like that is sort of the underlying, not very exciting traits that are really important to have a healthy relationship.
Yeah. And I think that's how you know that someone's doing the work. So as a woman, we know what doing the work is, but as a man, like, is it different for them? But I guess if they can then put their ego aside and have different conversations, know how to regulate their nervous system, communicate how they're feeling and what they need, I think for me, that shows a very emotionally intelligent man. Yeah, just
Yeah,
put the ego
yeah,
aside.
I love
Yeah.
that. And the actions he's taking to do that. And even the men around him, are the men around him doing that? Because a lot of
Mm,
all of us, we show up like the people we're around. I believe it's Wayne Dyer that said we will become the sum total of the 5 people that we spend the most time around.
yeah.
So does he have a couple of friends there that are doing the work themselves or that are role models for that? Or are they not the type of people that you want him to be more like? So you can look at his circle as well. And obviously, people can get isolated and things can happen. But yeah, really looking at how is he showing up to when life gets tough and stress is on him or he's tempted to isolate, how does he show up in those moments? Because you really need to see a man under stress and duress, and a woman too, to be fair, to see how someone handles their trauma and how they really will perform in a relationship.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. So we had some audience questions come through. So on my social
Nice.
media, I
I
put
like
a
it.
story up about I'm going to be chatting to a male dating coach and what would you want to ask him? And so I
All
got a
right.
few.
Heck yeah. Are we rapid fire or are we going to go deep on each one?
Oh, look, I'll leave that up to you. I'll leave that
All
up
right.
to you.
All
You
right.
feel into
Sounds
what
good.
needs to be answered here.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so the first one, which I chuckled when I read it, was have men forgotten how to date?
Um,
And I get it.
yeah,
It's a little
probably
bit dated.
partially. We're relearning again is the good news, but dating apps have not helped. I mean, there's actually a bit of a sad take on this, which is young boys now, and this is not applying to those who are over 40 or even over 30, but we're going to have issues, when the current batch of 15-year-olds, even 20 to 25-year-olds, they have not been able to date in the same way because social media has meant that social reputation has become extremely fragile in schools, which means young boys are a lot less likely to take risks like getting rejected by the girl they like, putting themselves out there to try something. And this isn't to say, teenage boys haven't done bad things in the past, but teenage years are a time for boys to really test, experiment, and kind of get themselves hurt and screw up and get rejected by girls and sort of stuff around enough times that they learn what is life and what is not and where they can take risks and where not. And unfortunately, I think we will increasingly, if men are not doing the work and not encouraging their sons to do the work, we will see boys who are yeah, have forgotten a little bit because they haven't had, I don't want to take the risk as a 14-year-old to ask out Sarah because if it goes wrong, she's going to put me on TikTok and then the whole school's going to know. And that's not
Yeah.
worth it. So why would he take that risk? He's better off
Mm.
just kind of staying away from women. And yeah, I do worry that it would lead to men, I suppose, forgetting how to date. And dating apps don't help either because the way everyone uses them is just terrible. So in a sense, I feel grateful that I was able to go out in a time and meet women when I basically had to get rejected and I had to just see the rejection and look it in the eyes and then deal with it because that
Yeah.
was a gift that is a little harder to get now. And I don't know where that leads, that path actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I find it really strange that when I talk to young men, so if I'm at a speed dating event and, it's a 28 to 45 age bracket, the 20-year-old men or even women, they're going online to find love. And I'm like, what
Yeah.
happened? And I'm like, I don't understand how, because for me, I'm just turned 40. So online dating for me was something where it's like kind of last resort, like maybe about, 5 to 10 years ago. It's a last resort. Can't meet anyone face to face. I'm just going to go online. And it had a lot of
Yeah.
shame around it back then. Now it has changed,
Yeah.
which is
Now
great.
it's normalized.
Yeah, but I just wonder what's happening where there is young men and women in their 20s jumping online to find love or find something. Like, what happened to that communication? That blows my mind.
I think COVID played a big part in that. There was a
Yeah.
few years of generation there that they lost their social butterfly years. And
Yeah.
it's really sad. And I would never, ever envy anyone in that situation because I was the same when I was 20, 21. I mean, I was extremely shy, but then I decided to thwart it and spend all my time in nightclubs just to get over anxiety. So I
Yeah.
had that opportunity. But without that growth, it really, it's, these kids are so smart. They're so smart. They're incredibly intelligent, but they haven't had the same level of opportunity or rejection that we got to have, especially for the men I can speak for.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do worry that that means that they will essentially forget how to date in a sense. And I don't know where that leads, Vanessa. Yeah, that's a bit of a worrying one. And
Yeah, it's a
I have a
scary
daughter,
one.
so it's gonna affect her because
Mm.
if men end up going into their corners, I mean, men who isolate are usually the ones that tend to become dangerous.
Yeah.
They're the ones that do nasty things to women, and we
Mm.
don't want isolated, angry men. That is not a good place to go. So we need women in men's lives and vice versa. And I do worry that as this generation of men gets older, if they don't have a level of connection, if they do isolate, especially from not only from women but from other men, I don't know what that does to their mental health, but it's not
Mm.
going to be good.
Yeah. I think that's another episode we could unpack right there. Hey.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
100%.
And the next question from the audience was, again, I laughed at this one. Do men know what they want, or are they just winging it? And I think that comes from more of the low effort that we can see on dating apps, but also when we do go out on the date, like, the conversation, and I've experienced in the past, is more one-sided. So it's like, do they know what they want, or are they just going out there winging it, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what happens?
Look, there are certainly some men who come to dating and say, I really want a relationship. There are also a lot that may come to dating uncertain.
Mm.
Men on their own, without the presence of the feminine in their life, will feel a lack. Even when my partner takes the baby away, stays at the grandparents or something, I go, oh, where's my balance here? So you can imagine, as a man who's been chronically single, there's a desire in him, whether it's just sex or whether it's connection. He goes, yeah, I should put myself out there. I'm not meeting any women. I'm just kind of sitting here maybe on my own with a couple of guy friends, and it builds up over time. Does that mean he is absolutely ready for a relationship? It doesn't always. For many men, it might be, if I meet the right girl, yep, or I meet the right woman, yep, but I don't know about you yet. So I'm going to keep my cards close to my chest. Do I want a relationship? I don't know. Maybe with you, but maybe not with you. So men do not like betraying you. We don't want to say, hey, I do want a relationship. And then we go on a date with you and we go, oh, I want one, but not with you.
Mm.
It's that we don't like that. So often men will keep those cards kind of close to their chest, either because they don't want to hurt you or because they genuinely don't know themselves and they're just getting out there to date. And maybe when they get out there to date, they meet someone they really like. Or maybe when they get out there to date, they realize, hang on a minute, I've not got over my ex. Screw that. I'm disappearing again.
Yeah.
So I do think there is less clarity from the man's side because there's so many factors going into that. Why is he out there? Is he aware of why he's out there? Yes, there are some men who are just there for a relationship, but for a lot of other men, it is a case of I want to see who I meet, and then I make the decision what I want from her.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's where that confusion can come from for women, because men can be all eager and very excited to get to that date. And then when they're sitting there, they've gotten to know this woman that's sitting in front of them, they realize, oh shit, she's not actually for me. I now know what
Yeah.
I want. How a lot of I have so many questions here. I'll try and wrap it up in one question. Um, for that to take place, women then feel that men just drop off. And that's when they either get breadcrumbing, they get phased out, or they get ghosted.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how would you, if a man was listening to this and he's sitting across from a woman and he was all like, yeah, she sounds like my type of woman, I'm really excited to get to know her. But now I'm like, oh no, the energy is not there. I'm just not feeling it. It's actually not what I want. How can
Yeah.
men best communicate that?
Great question. I would always call them or text. I typically called, but you have to feel the energy. If I also knew the woman wasn't into me, there is a place where there's a mutual disinterest here, and it's very obvious. You don't need to call a woman and tell her that. She's like, I know, I wasn't into you either.
We
But I
feel
would
it.
say to
We
a
feel
man
it.
listening, yeah, she knows it. I would say to a man listening, if you know that, like, let's say she gave you a green flag, and hopefully, or sorry, green flag, green light. I'm sorry, green light. Let's say she gives you a green light at the end of the date and says something to the nature of, well, I really enjoyed this. I'd love to see you again. Or she texts you afterwards and say, that was great. I'd love to do it again. If you know that she wants to see you again and you know that you don't want to see her again, if there's a clear mismatch, that's when you communicate.
Mhm.
That's when you either call her up. I would usually call, I think if it was second date or more, and sometimes text or call depending on the first date. I can remember doing a little bit of both for a first date, honestly. There was one girl I can remember calling because I could tell she was really into me, and I went, I just wasn't feeling it. So her, I actually called, but often after the first date, I'd send a text, hey, thanks for a great time. I wasn't feeling the connection I was hoping to. All the best in your search. If there's a clear mismatch, communicate it. If it's really obvious that you both don't like each other, you don't need you both realize it. If there's maybe a mismatch, I think that's where the situation can get confused. So I guess speaking to the women, I would say if you like the guy, give him that green light. And that way he gets the clarity and also you get the clarity, because if he doesn't follow through, even if he doesn't give you that phone call, well, you've given clarity to get clarity. If you say, hey, I'd love to do this again, and you don't hear from him again, okay, at least you don't have to worry that he like got confused or something. You can say, great, I put myself out there. He wasn't for me. That wasn't God, the universe's plan. Thanks for clearing that out of my energy. Now I can move on with kind of a clear conscience. I think where it gets gray is if the woman wants to see him again, but the guy's not sure. And then the guy's like, I don't know if she wants to see me. And then everyone's kind of confused. Just give clarity to get clarity. And that would go for men and the women. Guys, if you want to see her again, let her know. If you don't want to see her again, in most cases, you let her know as well, unless it's obvious she doesn't want to see you again.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And for women, when you're talking about the green light, I love that text message to say, look, I'd love to see you again. And just, yeah, again, give clarity to
Yep.
get clarity.
Yep.
When women are interested in a man, one of my friend and I were talking about this the other day. It was like, so she likes this guy, but she doesn't want to come across too strong. She doesn't want to, lean back. She kind of is in this like weird parallel. What
Uh,
would you
so
suggest to her? Like, what's the green light? So they've got a dinner date scheduled for next week, but she's like, I
yeah,
really like
make
him.
it
Or
obvious.
yeah,
Just make it obvious. Women get in this mindset a little more than men, where they go, oh, I can't be too obvious. But the truth is, you can be obvious as long as you trust your standards.
mm,
Because if if you are truly have standards, if your standards are actually good, then a guy will always feel like he could lose you. Like
yeah,
if that's true. So women who feel the need to play hard to get, deep down, I find they don't truly trust their standards or themselves, more to the point, to execute on those standards later on. So they kind of go, oh, I need to hold back a bit here to keep him interested. And I don't mean, hey, I think you're the best person I've ever met, and I'm seriously considering marrying you. Like that would be over the top, of course. I'm talking about, I had a great time talking, end of the phone call. Well, I had a really great chat. If you would like to invite me on a date, I'd be very open to that. Okay,
yeah,
nice chatting. Bye. Or at the end of the day, the example I gave earlier. So the green light, it's the woman sharing herself so the man can take the action. It's the eyes at the bar that you give him, which is a little scary for you, and then he walks over to you. It's the, hey, this is when I'm free if you want to call me. It's the invitational prompt. That's your vulnerability. And then the action is the man's vulnerability. Remember, relationships are always
mm,
about paired vulnerability. It's not just about the man taking all the risks. Your risk is the signal. Your open-heartedness is that bit of vulnerability of the green light, of sharing, of signaling him, of sharing. You have the space to come forward should you choose to. I'm not going to blow you out of the water or destroy you. His vulnerability then is then taking that on and having the balls basically to act on your prompt. And that's the dance. You can find men who will chase and chase you when you give them no signals, but a lot of them are drunk. And if they're not drunk, they're guys that are just in it for the chase. Okay,
yeah,
so you might get a guy who
yeah,
chases you for 3 months when you play hard to get, but the problem with that is you've now established that he can be in the vulnerable position by chasing you. You won't be vulnerable at all. So as soon as you start to like him and you get vulnerable, the dynamic changes too much and he's going to get bored and roll away. He was only there for the chase. So you want to start your vulnerability early in little ways, and then he will match you if he can and if he likes you. And that's why those little prompts are extremely important, because you're not playing hard to get. You don't need to. You can give the prompt. He still has to act on it. And then if he fucks up later down the line, he will not take you for granted, because, yeah, he can still basically fuck up later down the line. If he stops calling you, stops putting in effort, you're still willing to change your opinion on him. You're still willing to not like him as much later.
mm,
So trust your standards later to take care of him respecting you and him continuing to have interest. Don't try to achieve that through inhibiting your own interest.
yeah. Thank you so much. That's such valuable advice for any woman. And I will be telling my friend after this recording too. I'll share that with her.
What's up, Vanessa's friend? Thanks for
That's it.
sharing your story with us. We appreciate you.
So as we begin to wrap up this amazing conversation, share with the listeners what your program Make Him Yours is all about.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of options. I have myself and my coaches, and clients can work with one of us if they want one-to-one coaching. I really do a few things. I work with clients to set up their dating system. I help them through the dating process, as in managing the different men once they've got to dates and choosing the best one, compatibility, energetic match, etc. And then we work through early relational stuff, and a lot of that is around IFS therapy or parts work. So if any of you are familiar with internal family systems therapy, that's where we get really deep and go through kind of trauma work, inner child, different parts. I do a lot of that stuff. So if you want to work with one of us or myself or one of my coaches, there's that option. Or if you just want the course where you just learn the online dating stuff, that's obviously a much kind of easier thing that you can go through at your own pace. And if you want access to that, you can check out my website or shoot me an email, mark@makehimyours.com.au, and the details will be replied to you with.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. So yes, if you want to reach out to Mark, obviously check out the website. He's on social media as well. So I will link the links in the show notes for this episode. But this has
Beautiful.
been it's been an empowering, I feel very inspired. I feel very, to go back on the dating apps, I'm like, I feel confident in myself because I know that I trust myself and I trust my standards, as you've just mentioned. And, you've
Yeah.
given me that motivation to get on there and make it exciting again instead of, oh my God, something else I have to do. It's more life admin. So
Yeah, I love that. And
yeah,
trusting your standards, truly trusting them, it makes you very relaxed and very open. So you will find that your energy becomes more magnetic the more relaxed you are, and thus the more you trust your standards, the more magnetic you'll be. So there's a really cool positive loop there.
yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to Single and Not Settling. I know I have
You're
learned so
welcome.
much,
Thanks for
and I
having me.
know my
Thanks,
audience
listeners.
will as well. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Vanessa. It was a pleasure, guys.